I was thinking about committing suicide. And I remember just bawling one night to the Lord, and I had sort of been plotting what I was going to do and how I was going to do it, and I just thought, this is bad. This is really bad. And so I just started to pray to God, and I said, if you don't save me, then that's it. I have no hope. I just will be the end of me, and I need you to pick me up. And slowly he started to do that over time.
My senior year, we had moved away. We had moved back to Kentucky. And so I left all my friends behind. And, that was a troubling time for me. It was stressful. It was difficult to adapt to the new environment. And I think it was around November, December, one of the guys on my football team had been killed. He had been in a fight and was hit in the head rather hard, and he died from the injuries. And while we weren't close friends, we played football together. Football was very important in West Virginia. It's not a whole lot else to do. And we were a small team in a big school, and so we had to work as a team. And while outside of the team, we may not have hung out, when you're on the team, you're really close. And so that really bothered me. I mean, he was a year older than me, so he was in college, and he was a great guy. He was a nice guy. He was a hard-working kind of a guy, a little wild. And I guess that was the other thing that bothered me too, was that if I was still there, would I have been with him? And I can't say that I wouldn't have been. So there was a little bit of guilt involved. Another month later, a guy who was a closer friend and was on the football team killed himself. And then within a few weeks, another guy who was even closer to me died of the flu. Turns out later he had an undiagnosed heart condition. We didn't know that. So within just a few months' time, 3 people in 3 different incidents died. And it was very stressful. I felt alone. My parents weren't very encouraging people. And I began having a lot of guilt because we still went to church, but I knew I wasn't being the person that I was supposed to be. I wasn't having the friends that I was supposed to have. And part of me felt like, maybe if I'd been a better influence, would I have been able to made more of a positive impact? Not that I could have necessarily stopped things from happening, but no, you never know. Could I have been a better friend? Could I have tried to invite them to church? Lots of things could have happened, and I felt like I had wasted some great opportunities, and I wanted to be more involved. I wanted to be a strong Christian, and had no way of knowing how to go about doing it. But fortunately, after my senior year, during the summer between my senior year and college, I ended up getting a girlfriend that I hadn't planned on getting. And she was very encouraging. She came from a very strong Christian family. And she used lots of opportunities to show me where I could be better. The areas that I wanted to improve in, she provided me some guidance and advice, and 24 years later, she's still doing it.
The last party I went to, there was a young man there, probably 16, 17. He had just gotten his driver's license, that's for sure. He had had way too much to drink. He had to work early in the morning, and it being 1 or 2 a.m., he decided he needed to go home so he could go to bed and get into work in the morning. He was so intoxicated that he was unable to walk to his own car. So he had to crawl to his own car. And all my other friends just thought it was funny. But I knew this was wrong. I told him that we would give him a ride home in the morning and that he could stay here. But he didn't want to. he looked at me in shock. He knew that I was the most evil person that he had ever met. And here I am looking out for his well-being, looking out for others' well-being. But I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to see any more friends of mine die. And because of that, all my friends turned their back on me. I was being a hypocrite. I was trying to stop someone from doing something that I have done millions of times before. I just couldn't let it happen. I had to do something. I had to change.
I was baptized during a gospel meeting, and I'd been thinking about it already, and we had a preacher come in, and he really talked about heaven and hell and about doing the right thing, and I was just so pricked up in my heart at that point that I knew that, I felt like I would be continuing to sin if I didn't become a Christian at that point.
Hearing Lynn speak and hearing my grandmother talk about how much she just enjoyed life, and knowing how the troubles she had with her marriage and how she raised my dad and my uncle by herself, but she never wavered in her faith, and seeing that, and I just wanted to know how she was able to do that, and she showed me that. I still see her and how she conducted herself as a Christian lady, and I always wanted to be just like her.
I don't fully remember the sermon that day, but I do remember that he stopped the invitation song and he looked around the audience and what is your problem? Why haven't you come down? Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? And I know he wasn't talking to me, but I was being a nice little 9-year-old kid sitting with brothers and sisters and their friends, and I'd help somebody out, and as soon as he said that, I got up and went down for him.
Originally, I became a Christian to make my dad and my grandfather happy. I may have been a little too young to actually become a Christian, thinking back on that. I later sort of rededicated my life and actually was baptized a second time when I was older because I felt like I had done it way too soon in life.
I wanted to do what God wanted me to do, as well as, I had been taught that there was heaven and hell, and I realized in my life that I didn't want to go to hell. I wanted to go to heaven, and I also realized that I had sin in my life, and so I think once I realized that, I knew that I had to do something, which was become a Christian, to get rid of the sin that was in my life.
To me, I think it was just time. To be honest with you, I don't even remember the songs or the word that was spoken that night. I think it was just time for me. I was ready.
My motivation for being a Christian comes from not wanting to live in despair and depression and not wanting to live with that anger on me anymore. And I just knew that Jesus was the only answer for that. So at that point, it became my only choice to keep going in life and to live in joy and peace and not just constantly feel this struggle of never getting anywhere in my life. I just wanted relief from all that.
My life was in shambles, and I had two choices. I could come back to church and try to turn my life around, or I could give it all up and just commit suicide. But I decided to keep on trucking. I had lost my job, and I was going to eventually get kicked out of the house I was renting. So I asked my sister if I could stay with her until I found a new job and at least get some money in the bank again. Before I even asked her, I knew that she would ask me to come back to church. So, was my ego so big that I would rather be homeless? Would I rather be one of those scruffy looking guys under a bridge in a tent? was my ego so big that I couldn't turn my life around. And she did everything she could to help me out. And I didn't want to take advantage of her. So I knew that she was making an investment in me. And I didn't want to let her down. I was tired of letting my family down. I was tired of letting myself down. So I was like, well, it can't hurt anything other than some pride. I told her that I would come to church as long as she let me stay there for a while. So I did.
I was 14, and my motivations, I'm afraid to say, were a bit logical. You know, I didn't have this overpowering emotional catharsis. It was, Jeff had come over and taught some things to me and my brother, and you know, I trusted him, and I believed in the things he had to say. And he kind of, you know, talked to me about these little bits and pieces of Jesus and God and the church and baptism, and just little bits and pieces I picked up over the years from Vacation Bible schools and things like that. And for the first time, he gave them context. I understood what things were about. And I understood about the presence of sin and the needing of salvation. And so when he kind of put it all together, and then he asked the question, you know, he's like, what's keeping you from being baptized? And I was like, well, nothing. You know, it makes total sense. You know, let's do this. You know, if A, then B. And then I was baptized.